All
This
right,
is
so let's
great.
record and then we'll just start when it organically
Yes.
feels like it's okay. Since I'm the
Yeah.
one cutting it anyway, it doesn't matter. Right? Right. Okay.
Oh, that's
So, all right, I'm getting a new chair because this chair sucks. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marcy Brockman, and I am thrilled that you are here today. My very special guest, Aura Martinez, is here to chat with us about some really very personal, wonderful, motivating, inspirational things. Aura is a self-discovery and empowerment coach, helping the outer and inner travelers who seek greater well-being and personal fulfillment to discover themselves powerfully so that they can live life to the max. It's actually her business name, Live to the Max. As a
Viva
person,
máximo.
yeah, there you go. As a person who has traveled the world as a flight attendant, this opportunity has helped her to learn and see so much, and she discovered the most fabulous place for all to see that is truly the key to greater well-being, and she shares that with others worldwide. She is the founder of Live to the Max, Viva máximo. Did I do that even close?
Yes.
And the author of the book, Creating a Lifetime of Wellness, Start Having the Life You Deserve. The book has been seen on Spirituality and Health magazine, Psychology Today, and on Natural Awakenings NYC. She just reading this bio, Aura, I'm tired. You do a lot of things. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so thrilled that you're here with us.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't mean it in any other way. What the listeners don't know is that we've been talking for half an hour, hysterically laughing already. So,
Yeah.
it's you're all joining in the party a little late. Sorry, we're having a good time. So the episode title that we agreed on was Get Curious and Get Connected and Confident. And I agree with you that that it's just a phenomenal title, because being curious about everything inside us and outside around us and trying to make sense out of things seems to be the way we grow and learn to trust ourselves, even from when we're the smallest of children. When what we feel on the inside matches what we see on the outside, we learn to trust ourselves and trust our surroundings and feel safe. And when there's a disconnect, as so often there is, then we don't trust ourselves and we feel unsafe.
Indeed. Oh, indeed. This is why I'm such a believer that it's time that we get back to some of the childish ways. And I want to clarify what I mean with childish ways. As we're growing up, we're told that we have to mature. But I think that the maturity that a lot of times we are encouraged to have isn't the kind of maturity that is going to lead us to greater well being.
Right.
We're told to mature, getting rid of our childish ways. But yet there's certain childish ways that we need to go back to. So children actually know how to live. We have a lot to learn from children.
I agree.
So, the kind of childish ways that we need to start getting back to in order for us to be connected and get confident is the element of being curious. Kids are always curious to learn.
Yeah.
Kids are curious about everything.
They're sponges.
Yes. And we need to get back to that, because as we get back to that, we're going to start learning more about ourselves. As we get back to that, we're going to start getting back to our inner compass, our inner map.
Right.
Because this kind of disconnection that we experience as adults, it leads us to so much unnecessary hurt. It leads us to wrong paths. And when I say wrong paths, I mean, how many times do you see people getting themselves into careers that afterwards they're like, I hate this. I,
Absolutely.
I hate
My
this.
husband's one of them.
Well, yeah. Well, that's because that career path wasn't really what they actually wanted. It's probably the career path that a parent suggested, or a teacher suggested, or what society, because of what we watched in the media, has been brainwashing us that is cool or that we should be going after. And
Right.
so that's one of the childish ways that we need to get back to, getting curious. Another one is children, they're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to fall. They fall, they cry a little, and then they get back up.
Right. They haven't been ruined by society yet.
Yeah. And yet, when we fall, and I mean this, I'm using this as a metaphor, the falling,
Mhm.
in terms of when we fall on the floor, what do? We cry, but then we keep staying there. That is not the solution. You could cry a little bit, but get back up.
Right.
Get back up.
We have to relearn resilience.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
But definitely the curiosity part, we need to get back to it because I think as adults, we've stopped being curious. And the moment we stop being curious, it's as if a part of us starts to die. And that's the true essence, the soul.
Sure. See, I see that starting to happen. I teach high school English, and this is my 26th year teaching, and I see that in adolescence.
Yes.
When I first started teaching, kids, I guess because kids seemed less distracted. They seemed more able to focus. They had a longer attention span. They were more curious than I think the average kid is now. And it was 25 years ago that we didn't have the prevalence of social media. I don't think social media even existed. I think 2008 is when Facebook started. So in 1995, this stuff wasn't here. We still had like little analog flip phones. There was no smartphone even. So, I think that not that that's the ruination of the whole universe, but I think that we have to start with how we are raising our kids and how we're teaching our kids in school and start helping them learn to trust themselves and not forget how to be curious and explore and not be afraid of that.
Oh, yes, definitely. And if you don't mind me adding,
Sure, add anything.
yeah, I think that schools also play a big role because if you think about it, as teenagers, we no longer want to listen to our parents.
Right. They're listening to their friends.
Oh yeah, that's and that's why the teenage years are such vulnerable years because that's the moment where we're figuring out who we are and
Mhm.
where we fit in. And so because we want this separation from our parents, what we're seeing outside the home plays a big role. So I think that's when schools, well, this is just my opinion.
You're right. So far, I'm 100% agreeing with you.
Yeah, the schools needs to start stepping in because the parents can only do so much, but the influence that we get outside of the home is
Yeah, but as a classroom teacher, I'm with a group of 25 to 28 teenagers in a classroom for 41 minutes. And there's a limit to what the classroom teacher can do. And a guidance counselor probably has like 400 students that they see on a semi-regular basis or irregular basis. So there's a limit to what they can do.
you're
I
right.
know our high school has like 2,000 students, and we have one social worker and one and a half school psychologists. So I think that needs to change,
Yes, it does.
you
Wow.
know.
That needs, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, and school is we're following the same model for educating kids, sitting in rows in a classroom with a teacher in the front of the room, that we started in the end of the 19th century, just as the industrialization of the country was starting. And I don't know thank God I'm not going to be Secretary of Education under the Biden administration, because I would have no idea how to lead us forward. I mean, that's out of my pay grade. I know this, but I think that the whole of education needs to be revamped so that it's different, that it's not the teachers, the sage on the stage, but the students themselves directing project-based learning or problem solving and things like that. This is not what this interview was supposed to be, but
I
that's
know.
but to me, that kind of a thing would help the kids, I think, retain some of this curiosity and retain some of the trust of themselves, because and not get pigeonholed into whether they should be speaking or not, or if they raise their hand, their friends are going to think this, or girls aren't supposed to be smart, or boys like this, or, like we have all these societal expectations that take us out of trusting our inner knowing, as Glennon Doyle would put it. And I think we have to put that back.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I want to say this too, because I don't want anyone thinking that, say, for example, if your teenage years was messed up, oh, my whole life is going to be messed up. No, as a matter of fact, once you become an adult, your life is your responsibility. And
Right.
you have that pen. You can write the script of your life. You can decide how your life is going to be. So it's never too late to get
Right.
curious. It's never too late to start discovering yourself. It is never too late to change the chapter, to
Right.
change the book
Right.
of your life.
Yeah. And we have to learn that we have innate value that goes well beyond our service to the others, well beyond to the people who we take care of or the people we love, that we not only can, but have a responsibility to give ourselves permission, hence the title of this podcast, to explore who we are and figure out what makes us happy and what gives us meaning in our lives, even beyond happiness, and what makes us feel fulfilled. And, that if you can manage to marry the fulfillment and the meaning with what you're doing to make money, that would be fabulous. But it doesn't always work that way. And it's not necessarily that it does, but I think I grew up with the societal expectation that I wasn't allowed to live my dreams, that somehow that was selfish, right? Especially as women.
And it's actually the opposite.
Right.
The I've been saying for quite a few years now that it's time that we redefine what selfishness is.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, it is selfish for you not to give yourself permission to be happy. It is selfish for you not to take care of yourself. It is selfish when you don't fill up your cup. Why? Because you can only give from what you have. So, depending on how you feel and how you are living your life, that's how much you're going to be able to contribute to other people's life. So, for instance, if you are not happy, how in the world are you going to make your family happy? How in the world are you going to make other people happy?
Right.
It's actually selfish when you don't take care of yourself, because it's impossible to take care of others. As a flight attendant, when we're doing our safety demo, or
I
when
was
we're,
just thinking that.
yes, or when we're showing the safety demo, in case of a decompression, what do we suggest people to do? You put your own mask first. You
Right.
don't put it on your child. You don't put it on the person sitting next to you. You put it on yourself
Because
first.
you can't help anyone until you help yourself.
Exactly. You need to give yourself oxygen because otherwise, how are you going to be able to assist the other person? So
Right.
we have to remember that you need to give yourself permission to do you, permission to be happy, permission to discover yourself, permission to get
Right.
curious.
Absolutely. I heard something recently. I can't actually remember where somebody was saying that you shouldn't just fill your cup. You should fill your cup to overflowing. And then as it spills over, it fills up everyone else's cup. And I
That's what I've
thought
been saying
that
too.
was just fabulous.
I've been saying that as well, that you always want to have your cup in the overflow.
Right.
And the reason why you want to give from the overflow is because when you give to the overflow, you never feel depleted.
Of
You
course.
never feel like you're taken away from. Because when you feel that you are taken, someone is taking from you, what happens? That's where resentment starts.
Uh-huh.
That's where anger starts. That's where frustration starts.
Burnout,
And
exhaustion. Right.
exactly. And so then you see this dynamic in the relationship where, because of how you're feeling, you don't even realize that you're letting that person know without telling them, because many times we don't have the courage to even communicate what we're feeling, but we're demonstrating it to them. that
Right.
creates a reaction from their part. And there goes a very ugly cycle, and a relationship that could have been beautiful
Right.
starts falling apart.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It changes the whole scope, the whole trajectory of what could have been.
Yes.
Something else I heard, I'm reading the book Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski, I think is their last name. Very interesting story about emotional cycles and all of the things that women go through that burns them out, and how to like combat that basically. And what was the quote? The quote was, "You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm."
Oh, yes.
And I was like, that is another totally clarifying moment, you know?
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so let's unfold this in a semi-logical way. How did you get started as a self-discovery empowerment coach? I'm really interested in career journeys, because I think that most kids, when you ask the teenager or a college student, well, what do you want to be when you finish your, that they have no idea. Like, how did you know that this was even a job to do?
So I'm going to start from the beginning. No, the beginning, not as a child. No, no, no. The beginning
Yes.
in terms of I'm still a flight attendant, and I've been a flight attendant now for over 13 years. And at 30, and mind you, I love my job. I love it. I mean, it has allowed me to see so much,
I'm
not just of
sure.
the world, but of myself as well. And at 30, I realized I hit a wall. I hit a wall of frustration.
Hmm.
And I was just so frustrated. And mind you, I don't have reasons, in quotation marks, to feel frustrated. Here I am, I'm traveling the world. I can do whatever I want. I'm not making bad money, right?
Right.
But yeah, I was feeling frustrated. So I knew I couldn't remain in that frustration. So when I got curious about the frustration, what the frustration was trying to tell me was, I have so much more for you. My inner being wanted so much more.
Right.
So I want to point this out because this is very important. Many times when we feel frustrated in our life, we think that the frustration is because of the job or because of this. We point fingers. And when
Blame.
we do that, we lose the power. So when we're feeling whatever we're feeling, emotions are nothing else but feedback from your true essence, which is your soul. This is why the emotions are not to be ignored. They're not to be brushed underneath the rug. They are to be understood, to pay attention to acknowledge.
And to feel and to let them unfold and travel through them.
Yes.
Absolutely.
However, what you do not want to do is dwell on it.
Right.
That's the mistake that we make. We tend to live there, and we
Right.
start living in Sad Avenue and Depression Street, and you don't want to do that.
No, the rent is too high.
Yes, you don't want to do that. So because I sat with that frustration, I was able to understand the message that it had for me. Hence, that's the reason why I created a course called Your Frustration is Your Liberation. And I guide people through steps as to how to make it their liberation. Anyways, when I understood that, then I got curious as to, okay, so what is that more? Now, this is another very important point. I got curious, but I didn't get so anxious to know what that was, because when we get to a state of anxiety, which
Right.
is where I was heading with that frustration for a minute,
Sure.
we cannot receive the message that is meant for us. Okay, so I started off as a wellness and life coach. That was the calling that I had received, to
Okay.
be a coach, to be a wellness and life coach. So that's how I started, helping people get out of the sugar roller coaster that they will find themselves in.
Oh, I'm in there now.
Yeah.
In my
And
notes for this interview, underneath that, I have that underlined like 9 times in purple. I'm stuck there now. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
no, it's okay. It's okay. And so I noticed that in my client's journey as well as my own journey, because I lost 20 pounds actually on my own before becoming a wellness and life coach. That's what made me curious to learn more about nutrition. Hence, I'm board certified holistic health practitioner. Anyways,
Wow.
yeah. So I noticed that the people that were coming to
When you
me,
get curious, you get seriously curious.
yes, I
That's
do.
awesome.
I do because everything has a message for you. Everything
Right.
has something there for you. And that's where your jewels lie. So I noticed in my clients and in my journey that they didn't need help in terms of what's the right food for them to eat. I think we all know how to eat healthy for
Mhm.
the most part and how to lose weight. The problem was there was something there underneath that was preventing them from making the right choices in terms of eating the right foods.
Right.
And so that made me transition to being a self discovery and empowerment coach because I found that when you can discover yourself powerfully, none of this superficial stuff that
Mhm.
doesn't work. A lot of times we think we know ourselves powerfully, but we really don't. We only know ourselves in the surface. When you discover yourself powerfully, you can literally change several different areas of your life at once.
Simultaneously. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
Because you're
So,
unlocking the truth
oh
all
yes,
at once. Yeah. Makes
yes,
sense.
yes. So that's how it all got started. To
That's
being a
very
coach.
cool.
Yes.
That's very cool. Yeah. I in June of 2019, anybody who's read my book knows all of this, but in June of 2019, I had a hysterectomy after 18 months or 2 years of catastrophic, like feminine symptoms, that they all told me I was crazy. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And they're like, oh, yeah, there's all this stuff going on. Um, but throughout all of that, I was steadily gaining weight and no, I couldn't figure out why. I was supposedly eating healthy things. I've never been an exerciser like consistently. I'll do it great for a few months and then I crap out. And then, I'm not consistent. But for the most part, that process, whatever it was, had worked for me. And then suddenly it was not working for me at all. So last January, no, no, it was the summer of 2019, like right a couple of months after the hysterectomy, I hired a dietitian and we went through every habit, every supplement, every food I eat. I had blood drawn and they did like 108 tests on my blood to
Wow.
figure out exactly my body's immune and inflammatory response to like 100 and something different foods. So I have a full color printout of the things my body likes and the things my body doesn't like. And while I was dieting or trying to change my nutritional habits, as I try to look at it, I was eating all the things that my body hated. My body does not like salad. My body does not like dairy. And I was eating salad and yogurt and it was just wreaking havoc on everything. So I figured out exactly what I should be eating. But then quarantine happened. We all went into lockdown in March, and all of the new little habits that I was trying to put into place just flew out the window. And I was anxious, and I'm an emotional eater, and I ate my weight in Malamars and ice cream and, well, non-dairy vegan ice cream, but that still has calories. It still has sugar in it. And so that's where I'm sort of stuck now, like 50 pounds heavier than I was 10 years ago. And I don't like it. And at the same time that I have to be comfortable where I am now and not shame myself, I still have to fix it. Not necessarily to weigh what I did when I was 28, but to be healthier.
Two things that comes to mind that I want to say. Let me say the second one because I don't want to forget this second one. I'll remember the first one, but the second one I may forget, and it's very important. It's so important in our journey that we accept the where we're at in the journey,
Mhm.
because to the degree that we do not accept where we are in the journey because we're comparing ourselves to where we were just a year ago, or I should have been here by now. Trust me, I had my little moment like that last month.
Of
So it's only
course.
normal for us to have those moments. You are making your journey much more complicated, much more difficult, much more frustrating.
Adding baggage to it.
Yes. And so it's so important for us to accept where we are in our journey, because the quicker we can accept it, the the better we will feel and the easier things start becoming. That's one thing I
Okay.
want to say. And then the second thing, that's the thing about nutrition that many people may not be aware of. It seems as if it's simple that you eat these kind of foods and you're going to lose weight, and it's not necessarily like so. There's so many factors. This was not a part of the interview, but I just need to bring this
Sure.
up. Yeah.
Things happen organically, I just like to let it go. And to me, it's fun just talking about all this stuff. And how many millions of women and men really have the same issues. So I'm sure there are a lot of listeners who are going, "Oh my God, that's me." Yeah.
Yes. So there's so many different factors that we have to always consider when it comes to eating right and losing weight. So not everybody's body is the same. It
Right.
just isn't. Um, and I think that thinking that this particular diet, because it worked for someone else, is going to work for you as well, is flawed.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely. My
it's
blood test
flawed.
will tell you. I have to do totally different things.
Yes, it's flawed because there's so many components to it
Hmm.
that we need to be paying attention to. So I think when it comes to weight loss, at least that has been my experience, it's going to be important to always find what works for you. Try this. It doesn't work, then try something else, and then
Hmm.
try something else until you get to whatever it is that works for your body. But also know this, as you're losing weight, it's only normal for us to plateau at times.
Hmm.
And so that plateau, it doesn't mean that your efforts are useless. It just means it's time to spice it up a bit. I just
Change it
needed to
up.
know that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just needed to know that
absolutely.
there.
Absolutely. And that reminded me as you were talking of something that I had here, where you said we're not one size fits all, that our truth journey is different for everybody, which
Yes.
is,
Oh, you did your research.
well, you answered questions. I looked at your website, I read stuff.
Yes.
It's interesting. It's cool. Okay. So we talked about curiosity. We talked about, okay, how can being curious about everything lead us to healing the inner wounds that we have?
Oh, that's a good question. So, as you're getting curious, you're leaning in, right? One of the biggest mistakes, as a matter of fact, I have to say this, one of the biggest mistakes that we make is that we don't want to go to the dark places within us. We don't want to go to the wounds because they hurt so much. But yet it's interesting how as travelers, we get so curious to see the ugly parts, the good parts, the poor parts of a country. We need
Right.
to use that same curiosity and that same enthusiasm within ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's so important that we remember that wherever there's pain, there's something to gain.
There's a lesson inside everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but not just a lesson. There's a jewel there for you. There is something there for you. And so as you're getting curious and you're learning more about yourself, it is the learning about yourself that's gonna lead you to your healing. So, say for example, if your wound is confidence, this is just an example. Hence, get curious to get connected and confident.
Right.
So, say for example, if confidence is the issue, well, obviously, there is a lack of connection within you that you don't have the kind of confidence that you deserve to have, that you are meant to have. And so, as you're getting curious to understand the why behind that, it is you discovering why that is that the healing is going to happen.
Mhm.
Because we're all whole people, all of us, we're all whole. But the perception that we don't feel whole or that we don't think that we're whole doesn't allow us to feel whole and even act whole, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
And so the more you go within to understand where that's coming from, you may learn that the lack of confidence is because so and so said this, or because of this happened. So you will realize that it's not your inner being, your soul that believes those things. It's a thought or something that you acquired that doesn't even belong to you. So, what curiosity
Yeah,
allows
that
you to
happens
do,
so often. You could hear 1,000 really wonderful things about yourself, and then someone else says something that's biting and that you take as an insulting thing, and that's the one thing you hold on to.
yes. And so, what curiosity does is that it allows you to open that baggage. It allows you to open that baggage and unpack and see, okay, this shirt no longer fits me. It's gonna, I'm gonna have to donate it or whatever, or throw this in the trash so that your bag can be lighter for you.
I love how this metaphor works. This is fabulous.
And so it's so important that we do that unpacking. Curiosity leads to unpacking. Unpacking leads us to us feeling lighter. It allows us to do surgery. See, a lot of times we put bandages on wounds, on huge
Right.
wounds, and it doesn't work that way. And the more we become aware of what kind of bandages we're using, what brand you're using, meaning brand, boyfriend, or girlfriend, because
Right.
you're trying to heal this wound of I don't feel lovable, so I need someone to love me.
Yeah.
The brand of, yeah, the brand of alcohol, because you're trying to numb what's going on within you. See, it's
Right.
time that we stop using these bandages and start doing
Yeah, you
surgery.
can't heal your anxiety with cookies. It doesn't work.
No,
It
no,
just gives you
no.
something else to be anxious about.
Yes. And so that's why curiosity allows you to heal those wounds. It gets to the why. It gets to the root of what's really going on.
Yeah. That's really powerful, Laura.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how do we start this process of getting curious? So let's say, you're a listener and you're thinking, okay, this sounds like it makes a lot of sense to me, but how do I begin? What do you tell her?
Just like we would take time to get to know someone, think about this. When we're out on a date, we're so enthusiastic to get to know the person. We get curious about the person, right? And we ask all these questions. We dedicate our time to them. You got to do the same thing with yourself. So give yourself what I like to call that me time. That time where you sit with yourself, where you get curious about yourself. Get curious about what makes you mad.
Yeah,
Get curious about what makes you frustrated. Get curious about what hurts you. Oh, yeah, I dare to go there. Yes.
absolutely. The
Yes.
only way out is through.
Yeah. Oh, yes. The way out of that tunnel is through that
I have it
tunnel.
tattooed on my arm.
Really? Yes.
The only way out is through.
Wow. Isn't it powerful? You have that as a
Yeah,
tattoo, and look at that. We're talking about it here.
yeah,
But it's
it
so
is.
true. It's so true. And so
Because
sit.
if you don't heal that wound and you just ignore it and throw clothes over it in the corner, it's still going to be there.
Oh, it's still going to be there. And as a matter of fact, what happens when we ignore any part of ourselves? Well, think of a child. When you ignore a child, say, for example, if a child is crying and you ignore that child, what does the child do?
Screams louder or
Yeah,
dies.
yeah. Well, it'll scream very loud to the point that it'll get annoying, to the point that you cannot ignore that child. The
Right.
same thing happens when we have a wound. The same thing happens when we ignore any part of us. Well, the wound, what's going to happen is it's going to be full of pus. If
Right.
you ignore, and
Right.
and in when it comes to us, that pus is going to be that we're going to get ourselves into relationships that are not healthy, right? It's
Right.
going to be the pus in your life, or you're going to keep doing things that are destructive for you. It's going to be that pus in your life, right? And then,
Absolutely.
and then if you ignore yourself or a part of you, that part of you is just going to get louder and louder. That frustration is going to get louder. That anxiety is going to get louder. That depression is going to get louder. So, going back to the question, give yourself that time for yourself. Ask yourself those questions. Get curious about everything about you. Just like you would get curious about the person that you're dating, do the same thing with yourself, because you are the most powerful person, the most interesting person, the most important person you can actually get to know.
Absolutely. And it's more impactful than getting to know anything else, because you can't get away from yourself. And you deserve to give yourself to learn who you are, so that you can live a life without all that extra baggage, and actually be happy and have meaning and feel belonging and connected and all of that stuff that we all absolutely intrinsically need.
And I want to say this, I think this is very important. Some of the mistakes that I've seen people make is that when they start the journey, they stop because they're feeling a bit better. Oh, that's one of the biggest traps we can fall for. And the reason why is because you feel better, yes, because it makes you feel good now, but
The journey's not
relationship
done.
the journey is not done, and the relationship with yourself is something that always needs to be cultivated.
Right.
Your connection with yourself is not something that you have only once a month or once a year. No, it has to be a daily thing. It has
Mhm.
to be a daily thing. So just because you feel good now doesn't mean that you need to neglect your mind, neglect your emotions, neglect your spirit, neglect any part of you. Just like if you neglect working out, say for example, because now you have this body, I'm guilty of it. Um,
You finally reach your goal and then you stop.
and then I stopped because, well, my dad passed away 4 years ago, and so I
I'm
didn't eat
sorry.
properly, and so, well, that's a whole different topic. Not going
Yeah.
to go up on a tangent, but what happens if you reach your goal and you stop your weight loss goals and you stop? It's only a matter of time for you to gain most of that weight right back.
Right.
The same thing happens with your inner journey. The moment you stop, oh, forget it, forget it, forget it. It's going to be easy for you to go back to your old ways.
Hmm.
It's going to be easy for you to let yourself go. And so do not stop. And then the second thing I wanted to say, I hope you don't mind me sharing this.
Please share.
It's so important to seek the help that you need.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend people have their own coach. Now, depending on the level of whatever issue they're going through, because if it's so complex, I mean, if it's so traumatic, that's when I recommend a therapist or
Sure.
psychologist. I mean, I just want to put that out there because it's so important that we understand what it is that we need. But I highly recommend that people have their own coach, have someone that keeps them accountable.
The
It's-
accountability is a lot. It's important.
Yes.
And I'm a firm believer that your accountability partner should not be your partner or your
No,
child. It
no.
needs to be somebody you're not emotionally entangled with.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As soon as they start to remind you, it gets in the way, resentment and issues, and it's just a mess. So it has to be somebody else.
Yes.
And I can see how that would be empowering in every possible way, because you're dealing with all the messes in the corner that have been piling up and cleaning it all out and feeling mightily empowered and strong and resilient um, and confident in ways that you hadn't been before, because you're finally letting yourself deal with it. You're letting yourself deal with yourself,
Yes.
telling that critical, crazy person in the attic to shut up.
Yes. And the reason why I even dare to say that is because sometimes we think that we can do this level of work by ourselves, but that discovering yourself powerfully is something that is challenging. And I would even dare to say, and I know this is going to sound like I'm really pushing it, impossible. And I'll tell you why. Because we have blind spots. And
Right.
so working with someone, they could see something that you're not able to see. Because see, when we're living our own experiences, we're the ones that are experiencing it. And because we're experiencing it, it could be challenging for us to see it from a third person perspective.
Right. The emotionality gets in the way.
Yes. And so that's the reason why I recommend that people have their own coach, people have their own, someone that keeps them accountable.
Somebody neutral to bounce ideas off of, to talk to help us find different avenues of creativity and curiosity to dig it all out. Yeah. It's why I've been in therapy for most of my adult life, because I can't or don't want to have to navigate this journey of life without somebody to bounce it all off of, who's not necessarily emotionally involved and who knows the history of my life and can say, oh, call me on my shit, okay, you're just doing that again. Stop doing that. Come back here. I need it. I think most people do. And I don't know why there's a stigma still in 2020. I had a conversation at work yesterday with a couple of colleagues about therapy and medication, and was sort of embarrassed to admit, oh, are you on? Yeah, I'm on, what are you taking? Well, and it's, oh, well, okay, I can talk about this now. I think we need to talk about this.
Well, because I think people view seeking help as a weakness, and actually it's the opposite. It's strength.
Absolutely.
It's actually strength. And I also
Because you're
have to
admitting a
add,
vulnerability.
yes,
And there's nothing wrong with needing help. We're communal beings.
yes. And another thing I must say is that the person that you're bouncing ideas from and sharing everything you're going through, it cannot be your family and friends, like you just mentioned. Why?
Right.
I dare to say this too. Relationships are meant for it to be an equal, beautiful, healthy exchange between two healthy people.
Right.
So I find it very unfair and very unhealthy for you to take your bag and want to throw everything that's in your bag onto my bag. So now you made my bag heavy.
Right.
Well, so it's so important to have that person that isn't your friend, that isn't a family member, that you could work whatever it is that you want to work out. That way you don't put that extra, I don't even want to say the word burden, but that extra weight, because it is.
Sure.
It is. If
Yeah.
I,
You're asking them to wheel around your luggage too.
yeah, and
And
they
then
have,
they're going to get resentful. And
yeah,
then you're going to get hurt that they're resentful. And
yes,
just sets the whole toxicity in
yes.
motion.
You said it perfectly. Yes, yes, yes.
There you go. There you go. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. So here's another question. How do we, as a society, considering the way the media brainwashes and manipulates women to feel shame about their bodies, how do we get off that hamster wheel and start really, I mean, they throw around phrases like body positivity, but I don't know what the hell that means. How do we get off of that everybody should be model thin kind of wheel, that every other thing on social media I see is this diet trick and that diet trick and take this pill and do this exercise? And it's like constantly bombarding women to make them think they have to look like those airbrushed models in magazines when those airbrushed models in magazines don't even look like that themselves.
I would say get connected to your truth. And if you believe that your truth is that you're supposed to be that way, find out where you're getting that information. Is it really from you? Because I can tell you this, if it hurts, if it hurts that you are the way you are and that you are not what society says that you need to be, it's because there is a misalignment.
Right.
And that misalignment is your true essence, which is your soul, doesn't believe that's the way you're supposed to look. And so I would highly recommend for anyone that feels that way that they get connected with their truth, What does their true essence say that they should be like, that they should look like? Who do you want to be? Not what society says. And peel those layers. Get to the truth. Where is this coming from? Do you
Right.
really feel that way? Do you really feel that way? Oh my gosh. So that question hit so home for me, not in terms of body, but in terms of there was a part of me physically that I despised since I was a child.
Really?
Oh, yes. And this is why getting curious and getting connected is what's going to lead you to getting that confidence that you want. So I actually healed it at the beginning of this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it took me really getting so honest with myself as to where was that hatred coming from? Where was it coming from? Because as kids, as children, we're not born hating our bodies. If anything, we get curious about our bodies.
And we're free. No one looks at a toddler. No toddler looks at another toddler with 12 rolls on their butt and says, oh God, she's got such fat thighs. No
Yeah.
one says that. They run around naked. They're just everything is out there and they're
Yeah. Yes. So it took me doing a lot of unpacking. It was so hurtful, but I'm telling you, where there's pain, there's a lot to gain. That's where your light is. That's where your gold is. So when I understood that the hatred that I had towards that part of me came from my culture and society, I was able to come to terms that that truth wasn't my own. So I had to look at myself in the mirror so much.
That's really powerful. Say that again. You came to terms with the fact that the truth that you were telling yourself wasn't your own.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't.
It
So
was
I
someone else's idea that you had just transplanted on top of basically muzzling your actual truth.
yes,
Wow.
yeah. And I had to look at myself in the mirror a lot. Oh my God, that was painful. That was
Oh,
painful.
yeah. Yeah, that's hard.
That was painful. But the more I kept looking at it, the more I kept looking at myself, the more I kept realizing, doesn't look so bad. So at first, it doesn't look so bad. It took me time for me to say, it's beautiful. No, it doesn't look so bad.
Well, it's a start.
Yeah. And you got to start from where you're at. See,
Right.
sometimes we want to make this big jump. No, it doesn't work that way. You got to take it step by step.
Baby steps. Baby steps are still steps.
Oh, yes. And so then I started liking that part of me. Okay, so now I'm liking until I got to a point of me loving that part of me. And let me just tell you this, overcoming that, I was able to shine my light even brighter because I'm able to do everything that I'm doing right now. I'm able to speak with confidence. I could give a damn how I'm looking at this very moment because I look beautiful just the way I look.
You
But that,
do.
yeah, but that's just to say that it's so important when we have any body image issue that we really confront the truth of it. Where is it coming from? Is it really the truth of who you are? Come to terms that that is not the truth. That is not you. That is not who you are.
Right. Yeah, right. And I have issues with being uncomfortable with how my body is aging. But I want to make something clear. I never confuse that with my own value. And I don't confuse that with my own worth or my own capability or my own strength or my own intelligence or my talent or anything, because I think I'm a freaking tour de force badass woman. I just have a little more curve than I want. You know, it's a little harder to bend. It's a little harder to reach my toes because there's a little more in the middle than I'm comfortable with. But it doesn't ever make me feel unworthy of love and belonging and really good sex, you know. It is what it just is, the way my body looks now at 52. At this particular day, in this particular year, this is how it currently looks.
Well, you look great.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. All right. I don't know how to take a compliment. I suck at it. So yeah.
Well, let me tell you this. And this is so important that you bring this up, because I think that many times when we do have some kind of body issue, we do confuse it for our worth.
Right.
And when that happens, which is it's normal for it to happen, because the truth of the matter is the way we perceive ourselves is, which is your self-concept. So your self-concept and your self-esteem goes hand in hand. And by the way, I hope you don't mind me throwing this out there. If anyone has any problem receiving a compliment, there's something there to explore.
Oh, absolutely. 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 Yeah, that's a childhood thing.
Yeah.
From my mom.
Yeah.
And a little of my dad, but yeah, the comparison of other people and not being seen for who I was, but being seen as who they thought I was, or who they wanted me to be and didn't see me as, not actually me. That's where that is.
And that's very good that you know that.
Well, I spent quite a long time. I've been writing journals since I was since 1984, 1983. It was a long damn time ago. And unpacking all of these journals and rereading everything while I was writing my memoir last winter, I put a lot of things in order. I organized my suitcase really damn well, and had lots of conversations with my dad about the things that I was writing about, and we dredged up a lot of really ugly crap just to finally throw it in the garbage disposal and get rid of it. And it was a difficult few months. It really was terrible, but we got through it, and our relationship is 1,000 times better than it ever was before, because we got rid of all of that old crap sitting around, and it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. And I think it's hard, and people get stuck and they don't want to face it because it's so hard. And look, life right now isn't easy. Mental health is at an all-time low. I read yesterday in the New York Times, I think that 58% of American adults right now claim or report to have some sort of mental illness. So whether they're depressed or they're anxious, or some combination of all of that, because of all the strife in the world, because of the economy, because of COVID and all of the deaths and of the coronavirus throughout the since last winter, and what's going on with how that affects families and homes and relationships and parent and child relationships as people are quarantining and working and schooling. And it's a difficult time right now.
It is. And I think that also this is a time where we're being forced to see ourselves a lot more closely.
Yeah. So it's a good time.
Yeah.
As long as we're in turmoil anyway, rip off a few more Band-Aids and heal some stuff.
Yes. And it's when we want to run away from ourselves that we feel even more the frustration. I could go on and on with this, because the dynamics of what is going on nowadays is contributing even more to people feeling frustrated and anxious and depressed. And part of it also is because everything is being magnified, and people are being forced to see their reality, their selves, their relationships, the choices that they have made. Everything has just been magnified. But not going to continue going down that path, because otherwise we're going a different tangent. But it's pretty interesting what's going on nowadays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really what motivated me to start this podcast at this particular time, because I know that these conversations that I'm having with these wonderful guests like you, Aura, are what people need to be hearing now. we need to know that we're not alone, and not everyone has the time or the money or the resources or even the know-how to find a coach, or they don't have, inadequate health insurance or whatever to go find a therapist or whatever. So sometimes even just hearing someone else telling you you have permission to go spend time on yourself, you have permission to go write in a journal, take a walk, play with your dog, hang out with yourself, and figure out how you feel. Sometimes we just need someone else to tell us that we are allowed to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so much of something else that you wrote was something about how easy it is for all of us to seek happiness or fulfillment or meaning outside of ourselves. And it wasn't until I realized that the only way to actually get happiness, fulfillment, and meaning is to look inside. That if you keep looking outside, you're never going to find it, because it's all already here in your heart, in your inner knowing, in your inner self. Your true authenticity is already there. You just need to be alone with yourself and listen really carefully, because she's in there screaming for your attention.
Well, two things that I have to say about that. So, the first one is one of the reasons why you don't want to rely on outside things or people per se or titles or anything like that for your happiness is because when we're doing that, we're putting our overall well being in jeopardy in the sense that we're utilizing that as crutches. There we go, crutches. So what happens to that crutch? First of all, you get used to being on a crutch, right? You get used to relying on that for your happiness. What happens when that is gone? You fall.
Right.
So,
It also puts too much pressure on that outside thing.
well, yeah, it puts a lot of pressure, but it's such a disservice to yourself.
Right.
Because if we can remember, everything ceases. So let me clarify what that means. So some people they utilize the job title as their way of finding their happiness and to boost
They
and to
feel good
boost.
about themselves. Right.
Yes.
I have a corner office. Everything is good.
And that is such a horrible crutch to have because that's going to cease sooner or later in the sense that not because we pass, no, 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 but because there comes a time that we need to retire. So, what's going to happen when you no longer have that title?
Right.
Or what happens, God forbid, you lose your job like a lot of people have lately?
Businesses
What
fold. Then what?
Yeah. So then what? So your worth goes down because you no longer have that title? Oh no, 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 no. No,
Right.
no, 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 no. Say for example, if what you found happiness was being a mom, for example, this is just an example. That too is a crutch that you're utilizing because sooner or later your kids are going to grow. So, what's going to happen when your kids start having their own life and start having their own family? What you're going to feel worthless or bad or lost because all of a sudden your role as a mom has completely drastically changed. So you could see how having anything as a, I call them crutches when we rely heavily on these things
Sure.
for our
You're
happiness.
leaning on them. Yeah.
Yeah, because we disable ourselves in the process. And when I say that we disable ourselves in the process, I mean in the sense that think about this. If you're using a crutch, right? You get used to that crutch after a while. I don't know if you ever used a crutch before.
Many times I'm a klutz. Yeah.
Oh my God. I had to last year
Yeah,
in
but they hurt
November.
your arms, and then your
Oh,
hips hurt and your back hurts, and it throws everything out of whack.
it throws everything out of whack. So if you keep using the crutch, what happens is it weakens your legs actually. If you
Right.
don't get to a point where you are utilizing the part of your body that got hurt, it will weaken. So, what does that have to do with you and you disabling you? Well, you stop getting curious. You
Right.
stop growing as a person. You stop cultivating other parts of you and other things that you could be doing that can also be giving you joy. And
Right.
then the second thing is,
And that falls out of disuse, and then it atrophies.
yes. And then the second thing is, for anyone that may be listening and thinking, how in the world do I tap to my own happiness? What is that? Like, I don't get it. What is being said? Because I was once there. I was once like, how is it that everything is within? I mean, because if everything was really within, I would bring it out, right? How does that work? Well, it works to this point. The reason why your happiness is within is because when you start understanding yourself and discovering yourself powerfully, again, I want to emphasize powerfully, not superficial. When you understand your definition of happiness, when you understand what are the things that bring you joy, you know what you need to be cultivating.
Mhm.
You know what path you're supposed to head. So, as you know what path you're supposed to head, or you're supposed to be on, better get to say, you start feeling that happiness that you're seeking. So
Right.
that's how you start bringing it from within to out.
Makes a lot of sense. You start to feel like you're in the right place, and you know when that is.
Yeah.
I've had moments where I know, all right, this is definitely right. I feel like everything, body and soul, is in alignment, and I know I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Wow, really powerful stuff, Laura. Fabulous. Fabulous.
I love this. I love this
This is
talk.
so great. Okay, so each interview that I do, I like to begin with 6 questions, but you and I jumped into this so passionately and so easily that I totally forgot about them. So instead, we're going to end with the 6 questions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a thing. Okay, so what 5 words would you use to describe yourself?
Creative,
Mm-hmm,
multifaceted,
mm-hmm.
passionate, curious.
Of course. I was waiting for that one.
Curious and adventurous. Hence,
Excellent.
I love to travel.
That's wonderful. What's the your favorite place that you've been to? Not that that's one of the 6 questions, but I'm asking.
I would say Italy. Oh, it's where my heart is.
Gorgeous. I can't wait. One day when we're not in quarantine anymore and travel bans are lifted, we can travel. I'm going. Um, okay. So what is your favorite way to spend a day?
So it depends on the mood that I'm in. So I love reading, I love writing, I love being creative, but there's times where I just want to be just relaxing. So I would watch Netflix, watch
Sure.
something. So it depends the mood that I'm in.
Of course. Of course. Depends on the mood. Sometimes it depends on the season and the weather and exactly. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Oh my gosh. It was Christmas time and my parents surprised me with my bed being full of dolls. I will never forget that. They knew I wanted dolls for Christmas, like a
How
whole
old were you?
doll. Oh my gosh, was I don't know if I was 6 or 7, but I remember that so vividly because there's certain things that you just
Yeah,
never forget,
of
and
course.
I was just so happy.
That's awesome. Did you name them all?
I actually didn't name them, but
Really?
I didn't I don't re if I did, I don't remember the names, to be honest.
No, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have like 150 stuffed animals on my bed when I was a kid. And every single one of them, I don't remember any of their names, and I don't have any of them anymore. But I used to say goodnight to every single one of them
Oh. Oh.
before I would go to sleep. And they had the lion's share of the bed, and I slept in this tiny little, I was crazy. It was funny.
Cute.
Kids are odd, but fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one that might be seasonal or based on mood, but what is your favorite meal?
Oh, pizza.
Pizza?
Oh, yeah.
Deep dish, crunchy crush? What kind of toppings do you like?
Well, just cheese. I know. I know. I remember the guy that I used to date in Milan. He was like, "What? Just cheese? Add some stuff to it." I but just cheese and thin sliced.
Thin sliced.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love pizza. I can't do dairy anymore, but I love pizza. I wish I could eat it again. That would be so great. Um, okay. One piece of advice would you like to give your younger self?
Don't worry about anything. and just enjoy everything. Just enjoy it.
That's very free. That's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
What is the one thing you would most like to change about the world?
All these things that society just keeps imposing onto us, just because it adds these unnecessary issues that none
Yeah,
of us have any business having, like the beauty standard and all this kind of stuff. It's time that we feel comfortable being who we are, as long as who we are doesn't, hurt other people
sure.
or
As
ourselves.
long as we're not serial killers, we should be pretty happy with who we are, right? You know, I think that my answer to this question would be that I would like the world to not revolve around greed.
Oh, yes.
That I think greed can be blamed for almost every problem we have, because our self-image, our body images as people
Yeah.
wouldn't be harmed if corporations didn't make us or try to make us feel that way so that they could sell us products and add to their bottom line. So if
Oh,
greed was gone, I think that that's going to be the downfall of humanity. People
I
not
agree with
ever knowing that they have enough and always feeling like they need more.
I cannot agree with you. That's actually a good one, because greed, the kind of greed that we're seeing nowadays is destroying families,
Mm-hmm.
it's destroying people. This greed that we need to have the latest technology.
Right.
It just
Right. I'm still not done paying off this iPhone and I'm already getting things from Verizon that I should buy the next one. Like, no, this one's fine. There's
yeah,
still features of this one that I don't even know how to use yet.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Aura, this has been fabulous. I know that all of the listeners are probably very happy with what they've heard and are thinking very deeply about everything that we said. You're truly inspirational and brilliant and gorgeous, and I just love your smile, and I'm thrilled that you were here for episode 4. Thank you so very much for being a part of the launching, the takeoff of Permission to Heal.
I thank you for allowing me to be here. I know that Permission to Heal is gonna take off, and where's the plane? Because it's gonna go very, very far. I thank you so much for this. This has been exquisite.
I'm
Just
so glad. I'm so glad. Thanks very much.
thank you.